All right, I am hearing that we are live. So in theory, Mick, Will, and Kevin are here, and it looks like Bob France is coming, and I'm going to bring him into the stream. Welcome, Bob.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
We're doing all right. We just went live on Facebook, I believe. I am technically inefficient to a almost unbelievable level. So,
well, this is a lot for you to try to do then, being so technically unsound.
Hey, listen, all you got to do is jump off the bridge and find out if there's water below you.
It's true.
Steve, welcome, buddy.
Hey.
Sorry, all right.
I'm sending you a message saying I think I figured it out. Hi.
I think you did. All right. So what I need somebody to do is go on Facebook and tell me if we're actually live. And I'm going to go over here to our comments so that if people comment, I can say hello. Shawnee, hello. Okay. I think that we are live. All right. So this is the first ever Kickstarter edition of Explain Yourself. We've got 5 creators so far. James Powell may join us depending on if his computer wakes up. And I am hearing we're live, so woo, I have done one thing right. That is it for me. That's my quorum for the night. Everybody, let's go around the horn and introduce ourselves and quick elevator pitch on the book that you're kickstarting. I'm going to go Will first because that's a nice circle.
Okay, I'm Will Allred, and my book is Crossover Division, which when stories come to life and threaten to fracture reality beyond repair, only an English professor and a research librarian have the knowledge and smarts to save us all. Yeah, I read that. I just totally read that.
All right, looks like Mick, you can head up next.
My book is He May Yet Conquer. It's inspired by the public domain works of Edgar Rice Burroughs, and I guess I don't know. I never came up with a decent elevator pitch. Yeah, an old warrior decides he'd rather die than embrace a new world.
Okay, that works for me. All right, Steve.
Yeah, mine is The Catch. It's about a skip tracer that specializes in costume criminals who jump bail.
He's got an elevator pitch. Bam.
There it is.
All right, Bob.
My name is Bob France. I'm the co-writer and co-creator of The Dust Pirates. The Dust Pirates is a story about 2 dashing pirates, the quick-witted and charming Blackheart Sam Bellamy and the tough and thoughtful Quintor. They are taken from 1790s Earth and brought to a desert world known as Atlantis in a desperate attempt to save the people of Atlantis from Zizor, the tyrannical emperor who is controlling the water of Atlantis, hence the people of.
Nice. So I'm going to go back to comments. So I'm learning how to do this on the fly. Thank you, Shawnee. Thank you, Jeff, for coming in. Please throw any questions, comments. We would prefer to be here for you as opposed to do the crazy make-em-ups with each other. We obviously will do that if we have to, but if you have any question for any of the campaigns, any of the creators, does not have to be Kickstarter centric. It can be about the process of making comics. It can be, spoiler free, whether we were into the Loki finale or not. Spoiler free. And, but I think we'll go. Let's talk about Dust Pirates a little more specifically because you've got what 46 hours. You're almost there, right?
36 hours, and we funded over like the past 2 hours, so we're actually funded now, which is pretty cool.
Oh, beautiful!
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. I'm very happy. It only took Kevin Cuff, my co-writer and circus sideshow weirdo, to go on Instagram and eat Carolina Reaper chicken wings to get us over. But it's worked. It's odd because it's worked in the past. and it's worked now. So we're actually like $130 over, which is pretty sweet. Yeah, it's been a whirlwind. You know how Kickstarter is. It's just super stressful, and you live and die by every pledge. You die by every cancellation. You wonder what you did wrong, how you could bring them back. Like, maybe if I could just contact them, they'll come back to me. Like, it's this weird kind of game of like cat and mouse at times, but it's a lot of fun. So yeah, we're just having fun with it.
Shawnee wrote she got a kick out of the concept of a dry Atlantis.
Yeah, Kevin and I we would like to try to put a little spin on something. Everybody's seen a pirate movie, so what would be cool? What would be different about a pirate comic? Like, how could we make something like that different? Oh, it'd be cool if they were in Atlantis, but everybody kind of knows what Atlantis is. So what if we just kind of twist the expectations a little bit of it? And so now it's like this desert that was ravaged by war and power-hungry magicians and things of that nature. So we have some water in Atlantis, but it's controlled by Zizor, this evil dictator. So there's a group of revolutionaries that are trying to regain control of the water. So it kind of makes it a little Dune-y, if I can use that term, Dune-y.
I think that's what the author and the fandom prefers.
Yeah, Dune-y.
Yeah, they call themselves Doonies, I believe.
There you go. So we make it a little Dune-y, and we just kind of have some fun with it and mess with expectations a little bit. So it's been a really wild ride, to say the least.
Now, are you guys trying to hit the humor like you do with Metal Shark Bro? Is this a little more serious?
Obviously, no, because I mean, when you're doing a book about, you know, a shark who kills people for Satan, like, it's hard to, it's just so absurdist and silly and ridiculous. I mean, there is a sense of humor there, of course, because you've got these two pirates who are dear friends, kind of bantering back and forth with each other, but it's more of like a friendly banter between, you know, two people. But yeah, so it's funny, but it's not Metal Shark Bro funny, because I mean, that's just completely absurdist. This is more like, I don't want to say, you know how there were points of Lethal Weapon, like the first Lethal Weapon, that were funny because the interactions between the two characters. I guess that would be the easiest way to describe the humor in it. Just natural, everyday banter, if you will.
Nice.
Steve, what's up?
Question for Bob. How do you work with it with a co-writer? Do you guys have a set of roles? Like, one of you, you know, plots the story beats and the other fills it out, or do you just kind of go back and forth all the time? Or
it's a question we get a lot. It's for Kevin and I, a lot of it is done over kind of phone conversations. Kevin and I talk every day. So he'll say like, hey man, I got this idea. Okay, cool. Well, what if we do this to it? So it's kind of like playing a game of tennis. We're batting this idea back and forth until we really get something that we're excited about. Then at that part, we move to the outline of the book, because if two people are going to be working on a script, I love the picture over your shoulder, Will. That is just amazing, by the way. It just that totally threw me off what I was talking about, but I just saw a dog in a tuxedo, and I was like, oh, cool, dog in a tuxedo. But yeah, so that's when we go to the outline stage, and the outline for us is super important because two people are working on one document, so we can kind of have a roadmap of beat to beat to beat to beat. So that's always nice to do. Then what'll happen is, if I have an idea how I want it to open, now this is how I picture it, then I'll write the opening scene, and then Kevin can just kind of pick up where I left off and just kind of keep going. So it's really nice. It's very organized, but it is cool because we can talk, because we do talk every day about what we want to do. So Kevin can say, hey, what if we did this instead? And go, okay, cool, just amend the outline so I know, and so we don't forget, because we've forgotten more ideas than we've actually created together. So that's just kind of how it works for the two of us. I don't know how you guys do this stuff alone, like writing. It seems like such a lonely trek, but we enjoy the process of it. For us, it's kind of like a writer's room with Kevin and I. It doesn't matter whose idea or where it goes, but just as long as the best idea is on the page, that's all that matters, you know?
So generally, you guys, is there a level of compromise, or is there just kind of we both have to get to a place where we're both really psyched about this, and there's not really a final arbiter. We just have to be in agreement. Is it like that?
Yeah, I mean, like most of the time, Kevin and I kind of think along similar. We have similar sensibilities when it comes to making books. So because Dust Pirates was kind of his little creation, he was like, well, what if we do pirates? I was like, that's cool. Well, what would be cool for pirates? Well, what if we put them in Atlantis? Well, that's kind of cliche, but what if we did that? And we just kind of build and build and build. So I bring things to it too. And then everything is just like a puzzle piece that we kind of slowly piece together. There have been projects that Kevin and I have been working on for a year that we still haven't outlined yet because we just can't get it. It's missing something. That's one of us will always say it's missing something. And then we'll just kind of kick the idea around or kick it down the road and see if we come back to it in a couple weeks and kind of end up with it there. But yeah, we're just, it's just a process like anything else,
Cool.
Yeah. Oh man, I don't know about you. How long do you guys have since I'm the one closest to the end? Steve, I know your Kickstarter just started, correct? Like you've got like 20 some odd days left.
Yeah, well, I think we have like 20 days on the nose left. I think we started 10 days ago.
That's awesome. And you guys are already really far along in the process, right? You're at like 85 or 90% funded already, correct?
I think we're $199 shy of that.
That's awesome.
Because I put my Carnival Sideshow Barker hat on earlier saying, we have one commission reward left. This will bring us over, but, no takers.
So for your book, Steve, what you've done is you did 1, 2, and 3, but now you're doing everything together as the collection, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for this one.
Now, do you feel like as a creator and as for someone on Kickstarter, you gotta eat hot food for it to get it. That's the whole key. Get some hot sauce. But for the catch, do you feel like it's easier for you to build your audience because you're doing an issue 1 and then an issue 1 and 2, or would it be easier for you just to kind of go after your whole amount in one fell swoop? Because Kevin and I have been trying to weigh both sides of it, and we can't really come up with a solution to that one.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly not anything that I've cracked yet. Honestly, I think it was meeting Charlie Stickney at San Diego Comic-Con a couple of years ago.
Terrible guy, just a terrible guy.
Charlie, I will drive to wherever you are and fight you for that because Charlie is a saint.
Well, and yeah, he was very, very giving with the information.
I'm in Las Vegas. Come and get me.
You've been drinking red wine, sir, so I'm not going to mess with you.
But no, like looking at the way that he had built a serialized project made me kind of interested in it. And since The Catch was, a newer idea out of the gate, and I wouldn't be able to draw it, funding it issue by issue allowed me to pay a page rate to my co-creator Ishmael Canales, and so yeah, it's been interesting to do it that way. The last campaign I did a few months ago was for a complete volume of Athena Voltaire.
I love that's a great
pulpy thing that I usually write and draw. And we did that as a trade paperback, or as you could also get it as the individual issues. And I think for something that's already out there, I think that's kind of a cool approach to do. But being able to find and build your audience with, with a serialization has, I think, benefited The Catch. Will, I know you're serializing. And obviously, Kevin, you've serialized Tart for quite a bit.
Yeah, I think, and Kevin's kind of my, spiritual godfather and mentor that I look toward, because he has been doing Tart, on Kickstarter for, we're up to 13 now, which is great. And I had actually, honestly, had kind of started the whole project. I mean, and the reason I wanted to do serial is because paying artists is expensive.
Yes.
It really is. And
Period, Jeff.
Fugu.
And really kind of issue by issue is about the only way that it financially makes sense. Try to recoup some of the cost to pay the art team for, an issue by issue basis, and then collect it down the road. After you get 4 issues in, you've got an arc or something like that.
Now, I don't mean to, this is part of my question. I guess this is for all of you guys, since you do serialized. Do you feel like you're just stretching out the stress of running a Kickstarter because you're running a Kickstarter every 3 months, or is it like a legitimate way to build your audience and keep yourself on Kickstarter? Because Kevin and I try to do a Kickstarter a year, but I feel like if we did issue by issue, we would kind of always be on Kickstarter building momentum.
I mean, the answer to both questions is yes. So when you're running a Kickstarter every 4 months, 5 months, however much you can do it, it is very stressful because you're either planning a Kickstarter, running a Kickstarter, or fulfilling a Kickstarter while you're trying to write or draw the next issue. While you're, if you're lucky enough to have, like you're with Metal Shark Bros with Scout, we're with Scout with Tart. We're also putting books out in comic shops. You're juggling these different things. So the stress is ongoing, but you are sort of building your audience issue by issue by issue. Now you lose some people here and there, depending, and you don't always know why. Could be, their job changed and they're no longer going to be buying original art, and you can't be upset about that. Or, maybe they ran into the catch and they're like, that is the book I want to support, which is fine with me.
Sorry.
But I like it, as long as they go from me to you, I think that they've gone from a good book to a good book. So I got no problem with it. Hopefully they'll come back. But the reason I'm into serializing is because I'm giving individual floppy comics to people who want that. And I can come back and with Scout give a nice, affordable softcover collection for the people who just want the collection and they don't want to pay shipping. They've got that. And if I want to do a deluxe hardcover in the future, because I want something that looks
listen to that,
gorgeous on somebody's bookshelf, I can do that. And then I've given people 3 opportunities to grab the book in whatever way they want to. And there's some people who buy all 3. God love you. But that's why I like using Kickstarter issue by issue. But there have been times where we've had 2 issues done. And I just kickstarted those 2 issues at the same time.
Yeah.
Because they were done. So why would I make somebody pay shipping for 11 and then shipping for 12?
Makes sense.
So that's my thought. Mick, have you serialized or?
Oh, so this is only my second Kickstarter. And it is in like no way, shape, or form related to my first Kickstarter. And I planned on serializing, like the first thing I kickstarted, I'd written and drawn 3 separate issues, and I was most of the way done with the 4th issue. My plan at the time was to, kickstart an issue, kickstart another issue, kickstart the 3rd, but when I was putting it together, mostly due to like a lack of confidence in my own work, because it was the first time I'd ever put a completed comic book together. Like before then, I'd get partway through the process, and be like, no, this is terrible. I need to throw everything away and start over. So this is the first time I'd ever completed a book, and I had little confidence in it, in the book, or myself as a writer, or myself as an artist. So I was like, well, if I've given them 3 substandard issues, that will make it almost one worthwhile issue. And so I collected it, I kickstarted it as a collection. And
you just described my career.
Yeah. As soon as I got it in book form, I was like, oh my God, I might actually be okay at this. I really like this. And it was like, I should have done it serialized, but it was too late at that point. And, I still have plans to follow that original story up. There's definitely more there I want to explore. I've got it all mapped out. It's something I'd love to get back to, but after I finished kickstarting that, I successfully pitched the series to Source Point. So then I worked on that for a year, and then the pandemic year happened, and my daughter was home all the time, so it was hard just to find time to work. And then when she went back to school at this last year, and I had time to sit down and draw again, I had zero momentum left on that project, and was just I spent 5 months just kind of doodling around on this, that, and the other thing until this project happened. And I ended up with a full issue inside a couple weeks, and it was like, well, I guess I'll kickstart this now instead of going back to a previous project that wasn't in remotely the same shape.
Well, that sounded to me, with all your self-loathing and hatred, I was like, man, Mick's a real artist. Like, all right, he's part of the tribe, man.
Yeah, I cry every time I sit down at the monitor, and it's like, I'm never going to be good at this. And then the art just happens. It's my process.
Well, I see that James Powell is in the background. I'm going to bring him in. James, how are you, buddy?
Good. How are you guys doing?
We're doing great. I think we're about to go into Mick's Kickstarter. He's going to give us a little deeper run through his comics, since he was just talking about, no one is as confident in the world and non-self-loathing as James Powell. So,
oh yeah. No one loves me more than myself.
I was thinking about what Bob said, how lonely it would be to write by yourself. And it's like, yeah, I mean, that's my everyday, just me all alone.
That sounds awful. Like, I couldn't imagine doing that, because it's such a collaborative process between your collaborators, the artist, the letterer. I mean, with Metal Shark Bro, and I don't want to take away anybody's time, but it's just like I said, it's like a TV writer's room, because we come up with the idea and then we write the script. But as we're scripting and as Walter was drawing Metal Shark Bro, he go, what if we put this gag here? And go, all right, that works. And then even like Chaz, our editor and letterer, Chaz Pangbird, he even goes, well, what about this? And so it becomes like this monster that we're all kind of working on. So I think it makes it more fun for everyone, because when the artist feels like they have input on the script and the letterer feels like they have input on the script, they become more involved in the process and they take on ownership of it. And at the end of the day, that's what you're really looking for. You're looking for people who want to take the journey with you. They don't want to feel like mercenaries where you're just paying them, okay, draw the book and get out.
Yeah. That's kind of, I get what you're saying, even though I work by myself. So with Rovers, my first Kickstarter, before I did anything, I had a very clear idea of what I wanted to happen, when I wanted it to happen. I didn't write out a full script for myself, but I wrote most of a script. And then when I started working on it, kind of like the process I happened upon is like I had this outline in the script form. When I went through and did thumbnails for all the pages, I would do, my initial dialogue pass. And then I'd go through to do like the final art on it. And it's like, then as the artist approaching these pages, back at the beginning, it was like, oh, but like I want to include this here, or I want to include that there. And so, I'd rearrange things, edit things, bump things, change things. And then when I finished all the final art and I came back to letter it, it was like, oh, but now I want to do this and I want to do that. And so even in the lettering pass, I was erasing pages and adding panels and starting over in sections, because kind of like as I wore each hat and like looked through the book with that hat on, I would add or subtract whatever it was that stuck out at me. With
Makes sense.
The second book, with He May Yet Conquer, like the first 6 pages, I'd been kicking around in my head for a very long time, because like I've always loved, the works of Edgar Rice Burroughs. His Barsoom books are, some of the books I've read the most. And it was always, I loved the world building and the world he'd created, so I'd always wanted to play around in it. And I'd had the first 6 pages kicking around in my head. forever. So then I worked on a couple stories in Nightmare Theater, and when I finished all those up, I was like, what am I gonna do now? It was like, well, I'll just sit down and I'll draw a page of this thing I've been thinking about forever, just to like get back into the swing of drawing and see what happens. And like by the end of that first day, I had the first 3 pages done, and it just kind of snowballed from there, where I got pages done, 1 to 2 pages done every day. And I just kind of like wrote it as I drew. And it was like, approaching this page, what do I want to happen? I had like a very vague sense of how the story, of where I wanted the story to end up. And so like I, kept that as a guidepost through the process. But it was very much a story created, a page at a time, as the artist in me, kind of took precedent. And it was like, what did I want to draw on this page? Then the writer and the letterer had to justify it on the page.
That's awesome, man, because I mean, I feel like that's the way Burroughs wrote. He was a pulp writer. It was always about getting you to the next page. And
yeah. It felt very organic, and like, I know I've got to keep it moving. Like with my Source Point book, Hollow, it was, it's a take on the Sleepy Hollow myth with a little bit of like H.P. Lovecraft thrown in there, and I position Katrina Van Tassel as like the protector of her town, and then Ichabod Crane is this invading force. And so how does she protect her town from him? And on that's the only thing I've done where I did a full script beforehand, and like 2/3 of the way through issue 2, like I just felt trapped by my script. And it wasn't until like partway through issue 3, I was like, I need to just throw my script out at this point and go page by page, or at least rethink my approach to it, because it was very, it's like, no, I said talking heads for 5 pages, so it's got to be talking heads, but it's like, it's not interesting for 5 pages, And
that's why you put it for 8.
Yeah. Right? It's like one of those jokes you tell, but you tell it so often it becomes funny again. Yeah. And so like part of this project too was kind of refiguring out, how I wanted my process to look. Because with the stories I drew for Nightmare Theater, that's the, first time I'd drawn for another writer. And I drew a story for Charlie Stickney and 2 stories for Clay Adams.
This guy again.
You just named like you just named like Lucifer and Beelzebub. What are you doing, man?
Right? Like I wouldn't even be on Kickstarter if it wasn't for Charlie. It's all his fault.
Yeah. Well, he's so good at it too.
Like it makes it seem so easy. And he's like, no, you can do it too. But I'm not Charlie Stickney. How do I do it? I'm not
I wrote an amazing book. I got a great artist. I'm super good at PR and marketing.
It's so terrible being me. I was like, you jerk. I hate everything about you.
I love Charlie. You guys are all dicks. That's all.
Bob just saying that in case Charlie's listening.
He was in the room. I'm not. Yeah. I know who butters my bread, baby.
Now, in Bob's defense, he was defending Charlie before we knew he was in the room, but we know he's in the room.
I love Charlie.
Well, Charlie Stickney is the greatest person I've ever met, and I love him very much.
That's part of the cool part about being with the Scout family too, is because you can go to Charlie, who has an expert level on Kickstarter. Like he's got the badge, he's got the sash, he's got the hat, like the whole 9 yards. Like he's Mr. Kickstarter. And you could say, hey, Charlie, what do you think? What should we do here? How could we go about making this better? And he will give you unsolicited, unedited advice about your Kickstarting process. And
I feel like it's very concrete too. Like it's not like he comes to you like, well, make a good book. It's like, oh, great, thanks. Like, okay, I thought I was. Apparently I'm not, but like the times I've come to Charlie for help, it's been, like very, think about this, go to this page. What is this doing? It's been like, I'm not part of the Scout family, but like I met Charlie through his artist for White Ash. Connor streamed on Twitch for a long time. Like I met Connor through Twitch, met Charlie through Twitch. Charlie convinced me to do a Kickstarter, and like I've not stopped bugging Charlie since then, about all of my life's decisions. Am I raising my children right? Should I get them divorced? Should I stay with her?
I think you should try to stick it out, man.
Yeah.
I haven't heard anything about it, but try to stick it out. Well, as much as I want to bash Charlie over and over and over again, James was a little bit late on here. James, you want to give us we did an elevator pitch, but let's get into House of Fear. Tell everybody what it is and who it's for.
Actually, can I ask Mick one question?
Sorry,
we got on a sidetrack about Charlie, but I was curious if, as you were developing your He May Yet Conquer, if you felt any pressure or any hope to live up to Burroughs. I mean, was that any kind of daunting task, or did you just dive in and have fun with it? Because I'm a big Burroughs fan, and I love what you've done, what I've seen so far. So I'm just curious how that process was.
Yeah, no, I mostly just dived into it. I mean, like, not a month goes by where I don't read or listen to like a Burroughs audiobook. Like, they've got multiple Facebook pages that I'm heavily involved in, or not heavily, but I spend a lot of time on. And I feel like coming off of the work I'd done for Nightmare Theater, which, was my best work. Like, luckily, my recent work has always been my best work. And I've always felt like my recent work is my best work. And I feel like I'm always improving. So coming off of Nightmare Theater is like, I feel like I'm in a really good place where I can try this, and I think I could do it justice. So I just kind of like went for it, no regrets, and ended up with something I'm really happy with. And like it's not Burroughs, obviously, but it's my take on Burroughs, and I feel like it is at the very least honest to both.
Nice, that's cool.
I think it feels like me, but is respectful of where it came from.
That's really cool. James, I'm so glad you gave your time to Mick. Will, do you want to talk about crossover?
Can I intersect what?
Certainly, just kidding, Steve.
Because, I mean, it's a legacy of a bunch of amazing artists. You've got Roy Krenkel and Frank Frazetta and Hal Williamson and George Evans and, Kaluta. And that brings me around to my little brag here. Back in '87, I met Mike Kaluta at the Chicago Comic-Con, is what it was called then, before it got bought out by Wizard. And I got a sketch from him, and he said, "What do you want?" I said, "Any Burroughs character you want to draw." So I've got this gorgeous pencil drawing by Mike Kaluta of Tanhadron of Hastor from A Fighting Man on Mars. So that's my brag.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Nice.
And
I will say that part was daunting. Not so much living up to Burroughs, but living up to like the artistic legacy of everyone inspired by Burroughs. It's like that was probably the most intimidating part.
Now, are you coloring your work on that as well? Are you doing the whole shooting match? It looks beautiful.
I'm doing all of it, and that's because I'm only doing half the art. I don't color, and I've never been happy with my inking. But there's one brush in Clip Studio that I just absolutely love and use for everything. And so when I started on these pages, like, if I can't draw it with this brush, I won't do it. And like, I stop when that brush can no longer add anything to the image.
I feel bad because I'm taking away time from James, but I've got to ask: are you using the standard clip brushes or?
No, it's a Frinden brush. Let me just say thank you for James for giving me like literally all of your time.
I didn't know we had time limits. I wouldn't have asked.
Yeah, if you had been on time, you would have realized that it is strict and it is monitored.
There's a clock, and I actually got buzzard. Like, they gave me a real buzzer.
You go on mute after 5 minutes.
I actually have an orchestra in the room. They will play you off.
Yeah. But no, it's a brush from the Frienden packs. So I can hunt up a link and drop it in the chat.
No, I love the
it's the red pencil too, but all of my pages are set to grayscale for memory reasons. So like, yeah, it just
No,
it's a beautiful brush.
I'm going to steal some more of James' time. Do you feel that limitation
or the spotty brush?
Do you feel that limitation is helping the book? Because you said if that doesn't add to it, you stop. So is it creating a style for this book that you might not have in a different way?
I think I'm finally discovering what I would consider to be my style.
Okay.
Because what I tried with Rovers was different from what I did with Hollow, which was different from what I did for Nightmare Theater. What I did for Nightmare Theater is closer to this, but I was still trying to finesse it too much, where it was, I'd rough out the image with my favorite brush. I'd tighten up with this other pencil brush. Well, like this brush, was a default brush, so maybe it's more pencil-like, so I'll use this brush now. And it was like I was hunting for that easy button to make it look perfect instead of just using the tool I was familiar with to create an image I was happy with, which was, I got it. The longest page in He May Yet Conquer took me, I think, 4 hours to put together. I got some pages done in as few as 2 hours because I was comfortable with what I was using and I wasn't overthinking it or telling myself, but it needs to look a specific way before it's done. It was like, well, I've put everything on there. I came with this brush, so I'll just walk away and automatically move to the next page. It just kind of cut out this, that final step in comics creation where you second guess and doubt everything you've done. I managed to minimize that step significantly for this project.
That's cool. Okay, that's James, great. we have. I think we've softened everybody up. Let's hear about House of Fear.
Well, if I can just take a moment of James's time.
I have a question for Will, as a fact. House of Fear is scary comics for kids. It's Goosebumps meets Tales from the Crypt. So each issue has 1 to 3 stories, all standalone, all complete in every issue. So my intent with that was just to get kids who don't necessarily need to go to the comic shop every week or have parents who get on Kickstarter every 5 months or how often I launch, and there's just no cliffhangers. My goal is to have a kid be able to sit down and enjoy the whole comic as one piece and move on. So
I think that's so smart, especially tailoring it to that audience, because I don't think cliffhangers work for kids. They, some do, but they just want to know what happened. And if these characters come back, that's fine, but they want a beginning, middle, and end. And I think that's really smart. Have you ever brought any characters back, or has it always been new characters and situations?
So they all kind of live in the same world, so to speak. With our last issue, I showed that some of the kids that have been in previous issues show up in the background in like the lunchroom of the school. And with the next issue, I have a couple of almost Easter egg cameos in the background again. But I don't actually call that out. I don't actually have the characters appear in more than one story and actually play an active role. Not yet, anyway. We have plans for that, but
I picked out a special spot to stop. I noticed the Savini middle school. That was pretty solid.
Yeah, I couldn't help. When I had to come up with the name of the middle school, that was just the first name that came to mind, and I had to roll with that. So.
All right, you got the Charlie Stickney seal of approval.
Oh, look at that! Yeah.
All right, so we waited long enough.
He knows I owe him $20, so he thought I'd remind him.
Is it just like a Charlie Stickney support group? Is that what this is?
I think
all
so.
All of our lives have been affected in a positive way by Charlie.
Yes,
I agree with that.
Yes, and Bob is the only one who's actually sincere about what we feel about him, and I think it's very nice that you are, and I'm not going to be. So. And that's fine too. Nah, Charlie's great. We all love him.
So,
all right, so tell us more. Sorry,
is it still on me? I'm confused because no one's interrupted me yet.
No, I wanted to ask. I just wanted to ask. I had a question for James, if you guys don't mind.
Go.
How has the all ages comic boom helped you? Have you noticed a bump on Kickstarter? Have you noticed a bump in sales at conventions is kind of a thing that none of us have experienced here recently, but how has the scholastic the Scholastic boom affected your all ages work?
I hate to say it, but I haven't. I've heard it, I've felt it, but I haven't, literally seen numbers change.
Okay.
I know that. So we had a volume from Dark Horse. They put a collection out that collected 4 of our previous issues and a completely new story.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I've seen some upticks as far as sales go for that. But I think not being a part of the conventions has really made it difficult for me to sense it like personally and feel that, because I used to go to like the Denver Comic Con and they were big about kids and families there. And that was such a great feeling, just having kids run up to me and say, "You're the first table I wanted to come see because I got your book from last year."
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's definitely a sense. There's definitely a feeling. I think that there's more interest from kids or maybe publishers. I don't know. I think that there's just a sense growing that there can be more than just superhero stuff for kids. And a lot of, like, my son tried to read a lot of Batman and Spider-Man geared towards him, and he never quite took hold. But then he found the graphic novel section at Barnes and Noble in the kids section, and he's just went through and devoured practically everything. So it's definitely out there.
It's super smart on your part, because kids consume media in a completely different way than we did growing up. I went to the comic shop every week. I went to the comic shop whenever I could. My kids read graphic novels. I work in an elementary school, at least before the pandemic, and every kid in that school read graphic novels, and I would make the mistake of calling them comics, and they would, no, I read graphic novels. And it's like, whoa, sorry, dude. Sorry, buddy. I didn't mean to step on your literary toes there, my man. So it's great to see the audience for comics expanding, but they don't even know it. They have no idea that they're reading comics. To them, it's a completely different form of media. So it's good that you're kind of getting in on that. Hey, this is a whole collection thing. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, and I think that I've gone and done classroom situations where I teach or I talk to a class about how comics are made, and it's just like when I was a kid, comics were frowned upon, or you were a nerd, or you're kind of like the outcast read comics. And now it's like, oh yeah, they're in classrooms, the librarians, they're all interested, whatever it takes to get kids interested in reading and storytelling. So when I go to classrooms and I say, yeah, I write comics, like, everybody's interested. I've gone to like, what are those? I'm having a blank where you come in and talk about
TGI Fridays.
No, where you come in and talk about your job. So they'll have policemen and firemen.
Parole hearing. It's a parole hearing.
Career day. Yeah, career day. And every time I go in, and I'm not trying to brag, it's just fascinating that how times have changed. But like, I have more people coming, more kids choosing to come see me because they're so into comics than the police officer or the fireman, which I've always thought that's what all the kids wanted to go check out the fire truck or whatever. So it's just to go back to your point. Yeah, kids are digging graphic novels and comics, and as far as numbers go, you go look at Raina's numbers.
Shit.
Dude,
I saw that firsthand. I have a 10-year-old daughter, and we took her. Raina came to Cincinnati, and she did a speaking tour, and that place was packed to the rafters, and every kid had stacks of Raina Telgemeier books that they wanted autographed. It was the craziest shit I've ever seen before in my whole life. It was like the Beatles were in town.
Yeah, and like my daughter has all the Rainas, and it's like, hey, I drew a thing. She's like, no, I'm good. I don't need to read that. But it's a thing you might like. No, I'm good. No.
Raina's good though. I mean, I read some of her stuff, and I know it's geared towards what girls who are 12 to 14. I'm like, yeah, I'll read it.
But yeah, no, it's like, it's good stuff. Like, that's probably some of the first comics like my daughter and I sat down to read, because it's the first comic she found where like she could engage with it and like was excited about it. I mean, I remember kind of talking about, back in the day, like I had the decency to be ashamed of how much I loved comics in school and like didn't want anyone to know. And I've still like kind of carried that forward with me as an adult, where it's like, people ask what I do, and it's like, oh, I just stuff. Like, I don't necessarily. it's still not my go-to to be like, oh, you know, I make comics, I work in comics. You know, it's like I love comics, I love to talk about comics. I just, you know, feel deeply ashamed to talk about comics and to be interested in comics. And it's like, oh, that's okay now. I don't know if I'm ready for that.
I don't want to put you out there, but it's after 11 on a Friday night and you're in a podcast talking about comics. It's out, Mick. You've admitted
you think
it.
People are gonna know?
Well, you guys were talking about, before I came in, you guys were talking about serialization. And that's one of the questions I have in the back of my head. I ask myself questions all the time when I do Kickstarters, because there's a little bit of the self-doubt and what if I did this and that. But sometimes I wonder if, I think with the final book, my comics that are self-contained are great. But as far as Kickstarter goes, I sometimes wonder if, like, Kevin, like you might be doing it right because you kind of end it and then you leave it with the story more to come in the next issue. So they're anxiously looking forward to the next one. Whereas my stuff, it's like, oh, I just finished. I don't have that urge to read the next one. You see what I'm trying to get at? Mm-hmm. It's not quite what I'm trying to say, but as far as Kickstarter goes, I'm just curious how that plays out in the reader's mind.
In my opinion, the difference between you and I is I am selling to my readers and you are selling to your readers' parents.
Yeah.
There is a real big difference in what we're trying to do. I'm trying to get them to come back because they're salivating for the story. You're trying to get them to come back because their kid was happy when they put the book down.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure that you're not doing it right for you and I'm not doing it right for me when I hear those things stated. Point.
When, like, with the two projects I've had, or the two projects I've done on Kickstarter, including the one that's currently running, I both kind of like leave the end open for a follow-up. And like I've got follow-ups in mind, but I have no idea when I'm going to get to them. And it's like, I kept thinking, well, this next Kickstarter, I want to do something more self-contained because when I put it out there and it's done. And I can tell people it's done. And it's not like, oh, in 6 years, do you remember that thing I sold you 6 years ago? Here's the next part, So like, I worry that I'm doing it wrong because, like I'm hinting at and I'm starting down this road towards serialization, but because I'm an artiste, and I'm led by whatever my pencil wants to draw. It's like I don't have, like a strict time. Like, oh, I'm definitely going to work on this next, and then I'm going to do this thing. It's just like, it took me 5 months to like do this project, and then I knocked this project out. But like, maybe it's going to be 5 months before inspiration strikes and the next project happens. Mm-hmm. And it may not be one of these previous projects.
See, I feel that, I don't know if, did you guys read Pulp by Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Brilliant. Like, it was the best thing that I read last year. And I fell in love with that format, the 80-page kind of novella. Here it is. It's one and done. You get your whole story in one kit and caboodle. And like you were saying, Mick, I always have this fear about doing issue by issue by issue because I don't want to have to wait. Because I don't know what artist schedules are looking like because I don't draw. I'm just merely the writer. It even says it on my con banner. I just wrote the stuff. So it's like if I can get an artist, I want to get it all done at one time and then just move on to the next project. And as cons go, it's easier to sell a graphic novel than it is to sell a floppy. And if I'm going to put in the work to sell a $5 floppy, I'd rather put in the same amount of work to sell the $20 trade because I've made $15.
Right.
So it just looks better on my table. I love floppies. I still collect floppies, but that's the collector in me. But I notice I always end up buying trades. Like I'm just a trade guy at this point. And I think the industry is kind of moving that way. So I feel as a creator on Kickstarter, I need to move that way as well. So here it is. Here's one book. It's its own thing. I'm done with it. Enjoy. And then hopefully for the next book that we do, it's going to be something completely different with completely different characters, a completely different story. Hopefully you dig that too. But I feel like in a way that almost hurts us because we're not building an audience. We're trying to build an audience in our writing and not our characters, if that makes sense.
No, it makes total sense. Absolutely. It comes down, a lot of it is financial. If you have the financial wherewithal to finish an 80-page graphic novel, I mean, I think that's a beautiful thing that I would say do it. You know, Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips have between them 40 years of comic making experience, and they were able to convince a publisher to pay them a page rate to do this book. And I haven't read Pulp specifically, but
go buy it right now. Like, just go to Amazon.
Yeah, stop what you're doing.
It will both Reckless books while you're at it.
I just bought the first one today.
Right, but what you're saying is what the publisher said. Sean Phillip, Ed Brubaker, yes, go make it right now. Here's the money to do it. Yeah. If once you've built your career to where you can have somebody paying you to do it, I think that's exactly right. Or, man, if you got a great job and you're a lawyer and you write on the side and you want to do this, I'm all for it. Mm-hmm. I think though that the serialization allows you to pay your artist and not go in debt if you didn't make a mistake on the last Kickstarter. Because I've had a couple, I've made a mistake and we get to the next one and I'm like, I better have this past year I had to have a sale to pay my letter, you know? But I think that's great in theory, and I think it's something that we should aspire to long term. But short term, I think we have this amazing crowdfunding. We can kickstart one at a time or four at a time. Whatever the hell we want to do.
What am I trying to say here? So, like, I did the Kickstarter for Rovers. The next thing I did was the Series 3 Source Point. And, like, having a publisher pick up a story and publish it, like, on one level felt, like, absolutely amazing. And that validation I've chased my entire life, you know, because now I'd finally made it. But there is this completely different side of things when it came to promoting it versus Kickstarter. Because, like, my social media presence is minimal. I'm not good at it. I'm not invested in it. I don't spend time on it. And so, like, with Hollow, for me to sell that book, like, I, you know, was trying to sell it either to shops or to people to go to their shops and order it. Like, I needed shops to order it. And that, right, like, that was the metric of its success. And I don't know any shops. Like, I barely have a local shop where I live. And I don't have much social media presence. So it was like the 5 people, you know, who follow me that I know personally, you know, it's like I could ask them. But then those other 2 people who I don't know personally, like, you know, who are you going to ask? And so coming back and doing the second Kickstarter was, I prefer, like, this is easier for me, you know, in terms of, like, my, God, I don't know what I'm trying to say. In, like, terms of my ability to sell myself. You know, it's like I stream every day on Twitch when I'm drawing and working on a book.
But that's social media, though. I mean, so you're
right,
better
but, like,
at
it's
social media than you're
social
giving.
Media.
But you're giving yourself. You're not giving yourself enough credit. If you're streaming on Twitch every day, you're building an audience. You're just doing it a different way,
and you're doing it on a different platform. And it's still. You're right. Bob's right.
But it's like it's minuscule compared to the reach. You know, you get other places. But
no,
like,
I would disagree with you, Mick. I think you're actually connecting more with people because you're sitting there and they're interacting with you as you're working. They get to see what you're working on. I'm sure the conversation varies in all kinds of directions. You're talking for hours on end, where if you're just on Twitter, what do you get? 240 characters? Like, you're making a far more
Kickstarter, though. It's more direct. Like, I'm not saying, hey, go to your shop to order this thing. Like, I'm sending people directly to this page to do it. And so, like, I'm sitting here on Twitch doing what I do every day, and someone stops by and like, I just need you to go to this one other site, as opposed to, you know, drive to your local shop, call your local shop, and tell them to get this thing that in 2 months you'll have.
I think that if we had the next month, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to talk about figuring out the pre-ordering process of local comic shops, we wouldn't crack even the shell of the nut, because it's impossible because you're asking people to go in 3 months early to say you're going to buy something, and you're asking shops to believe them and buy something who, you know, like in my case, they've never heard of. It's a, you know, it's an uphill battle that we're all, anyone who's had a book in comic shops has struggled with. So don't think, I don't want you to think because it was a struggle that Mick is bad at it, because it is. It feels like you're David and you're fighting 100 Goliaths, and there's no stones.
Yeah.
Well, I just feel like,
and it's even worse too, because you're not fighting Goliath, you're fighting Batman and Spider-Man and
it's like that's what my local guy told me. It was like, you know, I've got 4 people that order indie books, but like, you know, I'll order some books for you, but you know, you're not DC or Marvel, so like,
getting into comic shops. Getting into comic shops is in some cases a curse. Like it's so much work to try to get someone to look at your book.
The next thing, and that's kind of what decided me on doing this project, is that
Charlie just stole you, by the way. Like Charlie just club punched you right in the face.
Like, this is the thing, Charlie comes to me at least once a week. Is like, why are you doing this, or why are you not doing this more frequently? But it's like trying to decide what I was going to do next, either, you know, Kickstarter or try to pitch something else to a publisher. It was like, with the Kickstarter, I feel like I have, you know, more control over the variables. I have more, I lose less money. Like I've made, even if like He May Yet Conquer ended today, I will have made, you know, twice what I made off of Hollow through source code. At this point, you know, like there's just, you cut out 2 middlemen. But it also lets me set the funding goal at a level where, you know, I can do whatever I want. You know, I'm in a position where, you know, I'm not a lawyer, but I married a doctor, and you know, she's legally obligated to keep me in the manner to which I'm accustomed. So you know, I stay home during the day with my daughter, and then I get to draw and write comics.
I got a great news for you. Joey Galvez is going to solve all of your problems. He said to come on to the House of Indie, and I have spoken with Joey, and it is a great time. So Joey had a really good question earlier. I'm going to pop this up, so whoever has the first answer, come on in. So we got, when do you all feel it's time to find an artist during the scripting process, and where can we go to do that? Ooh, that second part is difficult.
I don't know that I have an answer, but I would like to take James's time to answer it.
You know, it's funny for me. I've always wanted to connect with artists during the process, but I just can't do it. I have to finish the story before I want to pitch it to anybody or let anybody see it. Not like for some doubt, but I just want to have the story complete so that when I start talking about it, I already have it ready, and I still have I leave the door open for the artist to come back and suggest things. So it's more of that collaboration. But for me, I need to have the script as polished as I can before I start reaching out.
Yeah. I actually have an idea at the second part. Actually, Steve, you are an artist, so I'm going to let you answer it, and then I'll say what I think.
Well, I'm an artist, and I'm incredibly slow. So I realized I started getting a backlog of ideas that I knew they would either not be appropriate in my style, or that I would just never get to. So I eventually just started conning my friends into doing it. And I mean, I'm not kidding. It's pretty much every one of my collaborators is either a friend or someone that became a friend through, like The Catch, the co-creator is Ishmael Canales, and I had licensed my book Athena Voltaire to Action Lab while I had gone back to school for my master's. And Ishmael was the first artist that Action Lab hired. We became friends, so I said, hey, do you want to co-own a book with me? I've got this idea. But yeah, I mean, literally everybody that I end up working with in a writer-artist capacity is someone I've known and built a friendship with as as a peer or a colleague. So I am no help on this. That's what I'm saying.
I do feel like
work.
Oh, sorry. From like a writer artist point of view is that, well, not just that, but like as a solo creator, I've never really like sought out help, but like when, I'm doodling and doodling and doodling, about the time I have like 6 pages of doodles and like half a, scrap pad full of notes, like that's when it's time for me to start scripting and writing and getting serious about a project. It's in no way, complete, polished, remotely close to being finished, but there's enough there that, it's now interesting to me outside of scraps, and, I can start to envision what it might look like as a final package. And then I find myself in my study where I am all the time for the second part of the question.
Joey has another good question. I'm just going to say, where can you go to find an artist? I always have my eyes open to social media. I'm looking for artists that excite me, and put up sequential pages so I can believe that they're actually going to draw something that isn't just a cover, because covers are gorgeous, but they don't make a comic. And the conning my friends to do it, I build relationships with people, and then a year later, you might be sitting on Twitter and an artist like Jesse Sharon says, I just had a project fall apart and I've got 3 months. And I hit her up with a DM and said, hey, I've always loved your art. I've got a couple things that might fit for you. Do any of these interest you? And we ended up with a kid's book, The Poodles of Potter's Peak, because I had seen an artist who was awesome, and I had in my mind some ideas that she would fit for. And luckily, she had room in her schedule for me, because guess what? She can write her own comics. I cannot draw mine. So I need to be there when she's ready to work, not vice versa. He also had a question on, I think this is for Mick and Steve mostly.
Do you want to go first, or me, or?
I don't know. I feel like I'm dominating. So I mean, I feel like I'm being intrusive.
Oh.
I think that everybody's doing a damn fine job except for Charlie Stickney. So you talk when you want to talk.
I can try to field it. Generally, I assume that's about like doing the whole thing yourself, not when you switch it up and work on somebody else's script. I had worked. Maybe it is about working with somebody else.
I think it's a little bit about accepting a script. I read it as.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I have done like 2 freelance jobs as an artist for somebody else, and my dad had a stroke about 8 pages into the first one, which was a 24 story for IDW. So I was, about a month late on that book. So I never got work on that again. So I don't know that I'm the right guy to ask, because no one ever asks me to draw their stuff. So it's
well, can I hop in there a little?
Please.
I think, as you say, no one asks you to draw your stuff, but I think it's because you can write your own stuff, so you automatically become intimidating to someone who's strictly a writer. Because I know as a writer, you don't need me. So I'm not, it's very rare that I reach out to cartoonists to work on projects with me, but when we do work with cartoonists, it goes rather well, because they have the attitude of like, well, shit, I don't have to write this thing, so this is awesome. So they can kind of turn their brain off and just draw. So I think maybe, Steve, because you're a super talented dude, but so maybe you're not being asked because you do your own thing. You don't need me.
Well,
that was kind of my experience on Nightmare Theater. Is I knew I'd been bugging Charlie for months to let me draw something for him, and Clay was looking to do something, and like Clay had just moved down close to where I am, so like we had met in person, we talked, and it was like, oh yeah, I'd like to draw for you. I just finished up Hollow. I wasn't sure what to draw next. It was like, I'd like to draw something for my friends. So I wasn't seeking out work for myself so much as I was like pestering them to let me draw something for them. And like no matter what Charlie or Clay had come to me with, I've been like, yeah, I absolutely love it and I want to draw it, even if I didn't like it at all. But I loved both of those stories, and it was, yeah, like Bob said, it was very freeing and liberating. Just like turn off that writer side of my brain and just be like, all I need to do is get these pages out the door. And it's like, with Charlie, with Charlie, he'd given me a full script, so it was very, by the numbers, like I can structure and put this thing together like Charlie envisions. And with Clay, it was more, Marvel method, where he was like, okay, this needs to happen, make it happen. And in both instances, like, again, those are the first times I'd drawn for other people. It was very nice to get, to come at, it from two different directions. But it was more of a case of like, I love you and everything you do, and just let me do something for you. And after I wore them both down, they said yes.
Well, you make a good point about anthologies. I mean, I've backed a lot of anthologies on Kickstarters, and it's not because I'm a nice guy. It's because I'm looking to poach artists. Because you get sequentials there, and you can see, oh, this would work for this thing that I'm thinking about, or this would work for this thing I'm thinking about. So, I mean, anthologies are great for that. And
yeah,
when I was starting to put together Crossover Division, I wanted to make sure that it was going to be good enough. So I actually went out and found an editor, and it was before James joined the team. It was Jim Gibbons, who had worked at Dark Horse, and we actually spent quite a bit of time working on the pitch, getting the pitch solid. I had probably at this point already written the first couple of issues just because I wanted to get something out there, maybe a vomit draft or, whatever you want to call that. But I did find out that I really, really liked working with an editor, because as an editor of my own work, I suck so bad it's not even funny, right? Because I see what I intended to write, not what's actually on the page, which is, kind of defeats the purpose, right?
Yeah.
I don't think you suck as an editor. I just think nobody should edit themselves.
Agreed.
I've been working with Chris Murrin now on, Athena and Ghoul Scouts and The Catch and everything. And yeah, he elevates the work because we've developed a really good working relationship where I feel like there's two kinds of editors, two kinds of art directors, two kinds of professors, art professors. And it's either the ones who look and say, do it this way because this is how I do it, or the ones who say, I think you're trying to go in this direction. Here's how I think you can get there. And I've always liked the latter. And yeah, Chris is very good with my work in terms of kind of pointing me to that. I think what you're trying to do is this. Why don't you try it this way?
Let's segue.
I feel like that's the mark of a good editor.
Let's segue into Will. I don't think you've been able to talk
yeah.
all that close on Crossover Division, and I think it was a nice segue. So let's not get out of it. So go deep on Crossover Division.
Well, I'll go really deep. How about this? It's about the truth.
Oh,
it's about truth and the importance of truth. That's what it's about. Well, no, I think I've told this story once or twice before, but I was maybe out on a walk or out on a run or something, and there's some really wonderful words by Steve there. Thanks again for that, Steve. But this image of like a man in black, sitting down, arms covered in blood, with a knife in one hand, and he's saying, a man can only gut black beauty so many times. And that was the image that was in my head. And it's dark. That's extremely dark. And it's not the way I went with Crossover Division. But then that made me start thinking about fiction and how fiction, at least, in our reality, lies affect reality on a daily basis. How could I show that? Well, we have this great treasure trove of, the public domain, that, these works that are pretty much in the collective consciousness, right? I mean, they're just, people they know Frankenstein, but they've never read Frankenstein. They know who Sherlock Holmes is, but they've never read Sherlock Holmes, right? It's just, these stories infect kind of our, collective unconscious. So, getting to play with that and show, hopefully, that, fiction, what does fiction do to reality? And, we basically have these guys that, hey, these people don't like, they love a story so much that they create this bridge. Crossover Division then has to come in and break that bridge and stop the crossover, basically. We have an ontological event. I just like saying that. That's fun.
It's a great term.
But I have been extremely lucky because I found the artist Pablo Martinena on Twitter, and I put out a Twitter call, said, "Hey, I'm looking for an artist." I got a lot of really great, submissions, and it was amazing, kind of the ability that social media had to help me find that artist, and I feel like we work really well together. And the rest of the team, I mean, Brant Fowler's the letterer and designer, and he's also a writer. So, and then we have James on as editor. So we've got a lot of writers looking at it. So it's great having all these eyeballs on the story, because ultimately it's about the story. It's not about me. Although I guess probably is, if you read much of my work, it's probably about me. But it's just, we've got this really good team. And I know Bob was talking about, how a team really works together. And that's one of the things that I love from the first issue. I have Daniel, one of the crossover agents, getting ready to speak the last line of the work to the big giant Martian walker. And I think in the script, I'm like, he's standing in front of the Martian walker, getting ready to talk. Work your magic, Pablo, whatever. Mm-hmm. But Pablo actually has Daniel being reflected in this kind of lens window of the Martian walker, and I'm like, I would never have thought of that. I said he was standing in front of it, right? But this is awesome. Okay, great job. Let's keep up with that. Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing better than when you send a script to an artist and they stick with the heart of what you want it to look like, and it looks nothing like what you wrote. Like the entire panel is different. It's always probably the best panel in the entire book when they absorb what you're going for and bring it to the page in a way that you never envisioned.
And I'm going to just state this as a matter of fact, because it is 100% true. There are no better emails than art emails. Just not. There's just not.
I agree with that.
Money.
Yeah.
Money.
Now, Joey, I heard something that Will said in there. He put out on Twitter, "I need an artist." I'm going to make a guess here. You put the words "paid work" in that tweet.
I did indeed. Yes, I did.
Okay. So I think if you put out, paid work and a little bit of it's a 4-page short, an 8-page anthology, a 24-page one shot, or I'm looking don't do this. I'm looking to do my 500-page epic. Don't
Never
do this.
do that. Never do that.
Notice I started at 4-page, but if you say put the parameters out and say paid work, and you're going to get many people, and some people are starting on their art journey and they're not ready for the piece that you're writing, or you're starting on your writing journey and they're exactly who you want to draw, because the two of you are just going to try to find it together, and that's fine too.
Well, and I found Alice Leclerc, who is doing a variant cover for Crossover Division #2. I found her via the Visible Women thing.
Oh, that's cool.
Kelly Sudaconic, does every 6 months, I think, which I thought was pretty awesome. I mean, I think it's really great to have different viewpoints, because we all see the world, in different ways. And having Alice come on to do that cover, I think was really kind of a cool thing to have happen.
Okay, you just said covers. The Dust Pirate covers are some of the most astonishing covers I have seen on Kickstarter. Now, Crossover Division has some badass ones too, but I want to find that. How did you line up these covers, Bob? They're incredible. I'm going to find them and share the page.
It's a process, really, with Jason Copeland. He's a friend of ours. Kevin and I, we've known him for a long time. I was a huge fan. I still am of Kill All Monsters that him and Michael May did. Such a good book. And Jason's such a good dude. We play Star Wars D&D together. There's like a Star Wars role-playing game that we all play. So it was just a matter of like, hey, Jason, I know you're doing Full Tilt. I know you've got your thing going with Full Tilt, but would you like to do a cover because you draw killer monsters? We want to put a monster on a cover. So Jason was just an easy thing to go to. We like to go to friends. A lot of our friends will just go to, because Kevin and I are very active on social media. We have a podcast called The Word Bros, where we talk to a lot of artists, which is a way that we've kind of cherry picked people to work on projects with us. The first cover is from Kaylin Smith. She came to us recommended from a friend of ours, Hoyt Silva. We found Kaylin's work really enjoyable. She's also pretty great on Kickstarter, so we figured, hey, let's ask her. So maybe we can take some of her Kickstarter audience for us as well, which has been cool.
Shout out to Plume. That book is incredible.
Plume is great, right? Like, it's so good. And so we asked Kaylin to come on, and she agreed, and she knocked that thing out really quickly. The next cover, that's Liana Kangas, and Liana's just a sweetheart. I mean, she's so cool and she's so nice, and we had her on the Word Bros podcast. She did a cover for us for Ninja Nuns. She's just a pal at this point. So anytime we want to do work, we want to work with Liana, but she's too busy and too big time for us. So we just ask her to draw covers, which works. This one's from Joe Mulvey, and I just love Joe. We've had him on the Word Bros podcast. He's worked with our other buddy Rich Dewick a lot. They're with the Comic Tribe guys. Yeah. Joe is a cool guy despite being a Yankees fan, and he's a great artist. So we've had him on, and that's Copeland's cover right there. Copeland is just he's a fantastic artist. And when we had the monster idea, who better to draw monsters than Jason? And then Josh Jensen colored that. So you guys know Josh, because some of you are even working with Josh, and he's such a great dude. And the last one is from Max Shader, and Kevin just asked him. That's all it was. Like, Kevin just reached out to him on Twitter, and it's not every day you can get an Eisner nominated artist to draw a cover for you. And we let him read the book, and he was like, you know what I would like to do for this? Like the old like Indiana Jones posters. I forget the artist's name. It's right on the tip of my tongue. Struzen. He was like, I want to do a Struzen for this. It's, yeah, sure, do it. I mean, how can you say no to that? Like, you're just gonna, do it. So he did. And we just kind of rocked it out. We were really lucky. And we even have 2 or 3 other covers that we're holding for the direct market if the book gets picked up by a publisher. So it's just, we just ask friends. It's really easy. You just say, hey man, we love your artwork. We love you. Yeah, sure. We'll love to do something for you. And we pay their rate, and we pay on time, which is cool, because somebody knows that they can do a cover for us, and then boom, they're going to get paid. So that's always nice too. That's why artists like Kevin and I, because we pay their rates and we pay when we say we're going to pay them. Like there's no magic secret to it.
What a concept.
It's just pay them and they love you. And part of the thing that we do too is a lot of it is one of the questions we ask, even when it's just doing covers, is what do you want to draw? As a writer, when we're approaching a new artist, whether it's for a cover or a short or like a pitch, it's what do you want to draw? We know you're talented. We know this is what we've seen you draw, but tell us something that you're interested in, and we'll try to direct our pitch that way, if that makes sense. So we'll work with the writer, or excuse me, right? If only publisher will well.
But, yeah, the guy that was sticking up for Charlie all night. You see where that got you.
Yeah, man, we're good. Charlie and I are good.
I think we've got a troll somewhere in here. I don't know.
What's up, Steve?
Oh, my iPad is at 9%, so I need to scoot before I'm just like vanished. But,
well, let's get one last talk on the catch. I'm gonna put up the page, and
I feel bad interrupting.
No. We're here for each other. We're not here for any specific person, and that is fine. So talk about the catch.
Skip Tracers going after D-list bad guys with wacky costumes. That's the long and short of it.
Can I jump in if you're gonna do the artist thing and be all humble? Can I jump in for you?
It's like an Elmore Leonard novel.
You know what? I was reading this and I got to, it's on your page. I got to this image in this high-speed chase of this.
Right? That's so amazing.
And I just went, oh, fuck, this is fun.
Yeah.
This book is fun. And I love Watchmen. This is not me. I'm not bringing down Watchmen. It felt like Watchmen, but the choice wasn't to deconstruct comics. It was to embrace comics. And I just had so much fun reading this universe that was brand new, filled with archetypes of characters that I knew and loved in a way that I didn't feel like I had missed 100 years of universe building. I felt like I was there. So it's a murder mystery in a new universe that I don't think you're going to feel lost in. I think you're just going to have a blast with.
Well, thank you. Yeah. I have any of you read Soon I Will Be Invincible by Austin Grossman? He's the brother of Lev Grossman, who wrote the Magicians series. Okay. But it's got that very lived-in superhero vibe where, it plays with the tropes of the medium, and people are just casually accepting of the fact that, oh, so and so was gone in a parallel universe for 6 years. Like civilians in that. Oh, yeah. Thank you, Charlie. Your check's in the mail. I just really like the charm of that and kind of rolling with that. And it was weird to have a superhero idea because I'm really bad at drawing them. I'm much better at drawing, people that wear leather jackets and have folds in the clothing and stuff like that. So I was really fortunate to get an artist like Ishmael to be my partner on this.
Before you go, I have to ask. Some of the layouts in this book were extraordinarily intricate, but so easy to follow. Is that in the script, or is that your artist? Is it you guys collaborating?
That's Ishmael. That is, he has a wonderful sense of staging, and really, I just put the bare bones of what needs to be visualized. I have aphantasia, which is I've read it described as my mind's eye is blind, so I don't pre-visualize things when I'm drawing. How some people say I just see what I see in my head and I put it on paper. I don't have that ability, and for years I thought it was like it fed into my imposter syndrome because I thought maybe I just had a really bad observational eye. And I read this interview with Glenn Keane, who directed Disney's Tarzan movie, and he has the same thing. So I try not to put staging in unless it's absolutely necessary to set the scene, because I can't see it well enough to do that unless I'm drawing it. And I don't want to hinder somebody else by saying, draw within my limitations, when he has a much better sense of staging than I do. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. No, that's great. Yeah. You're playing to the strength of the artist on this book. That's neat. It's not neat to hear that you have, what was the word?
Aphantasia. APHANTASIA.
I'm not.
Like, I just won the spelling bee. Now I'm dribbling out.
I want good videos of you dribbling and shooting hoops now.
She's amazing.
She's incredible.
But I'm sorry. I don't mean to like come and pimp and scoot. But thank you for hanging out for a little while tonight.
Steve, it was a pleasure having you. Have a good night.
Have a good night, Steve.
Later, Steve.
Thank you, Mick, and thank you, Shawnee, because I had little alerts.
Oh yeah,
the campaign.
Well, it occurs to me I don't actually read a lot of comics anymore, and it's like, oh, you know what a great place to start would be? The people here,
Well, so we guaranteed to have some backing out of this.
Everybody here gets 5 backers. That's the deal.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, it was fun, and good night, everyone. Be safe.
Good night, Steve.
Hey, Steve.
I'm looking down at my phone. I'm backing Mick right now. The one of the 6 I hadn't backed yet. So I see the letters NSFW. Select.
Yeah, as a Burroughs fan, I backed that one the second I knew it was out there. So
yeah, we are quite the John Carter of Mars fanatics around the house here. It's one of those books that I ended up, I think, reading.
No, you should have backed me at less. Now I hit the stretch goal and I have to draw more pages now.
And
it is the worst.
I will say, how good was the movie?
Oh,
I liked it. So
I'm not gonna lie to you. I loved it.
Historical inaccuracies, even though the book wasn't historic. But I liked it for its own thing. I watch it 3 times a year. And every time, I'm very sad I'm never going to get a sequel.
Yeah, me too. I love that movie. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
it was beautiful. I didn't like some of the background stuff. I mean, A Princess of Mars is really a travelogue, and it's just wonderful. It's such a page turner. What happens next? What's he going to encounter next?
Yeah,
and giving him a family. I loved the visualization of the scene where he's taking on the Horde, by himself.
Yeah.
That was something I had wanted to see on the screen, forever. But it may have been that, me and my sons had such a love. On their 16th birthday was the day that movie came out. And we were like, we're going to see John Carter. This is going to be awesome. And maybe it didn't completely live up to, the unrealistic goals maybe that we set on it, but it was a beautiful movie, and it certainly at least deserved, a sequel. But
yeah. I'm just pissed. I have to wait however many years for people to forget that it was kind of a flop, so some other people are going to be like, well, let's make one. And then Edgar Rice Burroughs is go ahead and make one. And then they're actually going to make the damn thing. I have no idea how long I have to wait at this point.
Maybe a couple decades. I don't know.
Well, Disney has the rights to it. They're probably never going to let it go because they just gobble up the IP. So who knows?
Yeah.
Isn't it in public domain?
The first 4 or 5 books, I think, are public domain, right?
Yeah, make it right now.
You know what? I'm going to start.
That's how it works. I think some of the characters are not public domain.
Yeah, they right? Because like, so part of what I'm doing is, right, like it's based off of stuff that's only in those first 3 books, which are solidly in public domain. But I'm not using any of the famous characters. I'm trying to avoid, like the word Barsoom, anything, because like the Edgar Rice Burroughs estate has trademarked quite a few names and concepts, I guess. And so, I'm trying to use them without naming them where I can. It's like the 2 characters, like the He May Yet Conquer is, primarily a conversation between 2 characters on their way somewhere. And, the character of John Carter is such a large mythic figure in this world that I couldn't not talk about him. But instead of ever referring to him by name, they refer to him as the Warlord, which is his title at the end of the 3rd book. And so, if you are a Burroughs fan, it's obvious who that is referring to. And like, if this, for some reason, is unfortunately your first exposure to that world, then, you at least get the idea that this is an important mythic figure, even if, I don't come out and call him by name.
Mm-hmm. Well, and as much as I love those books, there's going to be a crossover that involves them.
Yeah.
That's happening at some point in the future. That's happening.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Because again, like they're public domain. Like they're but they belong to us, the people, at this point. Not just some IP factory.
Yeah, and that's well, it's funny because so the boys, I would read to them every night, and we went through, of course, the Harry Potter books and the Hardy Boys books and all these things. But we actually read all of the John Carter books like 4 times. We did the Venus books, Carson of Venus.
Yeah.
We did the strangely enough, we didn't do Tarzan, but we did do the Interior of the Earth books. I can never remember.
The Voyage. Yeah. Now it's kind of good that you skipped Tarzan because it's problematic at this point. Like it's. I read Tarzan on vacation a couple of years ago, and there were points while reading the book where I was looking over my shoulder to make sure nobody saw me reading this stuff because it's really racist. Like,
yeah, it is.
It's bad. I mean, the bones of the story are still enjoyable, and the action and the adventure are great, and it's well written, but it's just really, really racist. And I felt terrible reading it. I was like, I'm gonna finish it, but I'm gonna hide this. But
yeah, right. Yeah. Like the first 2 Tarzan books were like some of my favorite books as a kid, and I read them like every year for years and years and years. And then like a couple of years ago, I went back to read them again. And it's like, my God! Like even at the time, someone had to have been like, maybe, like.
Yeah. Well, we rewatched like movies to show our kid, and like we the baseball team, Walter Matthau. Bears. It was Bad News Bears. I'm like, there's nothing wrong with this. My wife goes, let's watch it, and every word that Tanner says is some racial epithet or another, and we went, we can't explain this away to my 11-year-old at the time, 12-year-old. That we grew up thinking this was fine.
Yeah.
And so we didn't show it to her, even though, like if you remove some of those, if you remove all of those things and some other things, it's a great movie. But we couldn't like pull the trigger. It's amazing what sits there and was not just acceptable, but lauded in the past. And it's just new eyes. It's nice to be educated enough to be reading an old book and realize, this is
bad news. Well, that's kind of bears.
Exactly.
Well, that's some of what we wanted to do with the Dust Pirates, because the Dust Pirates is, I mean, it's pulp. I mean, it's got we've kind of replaced, Edgar Rice Burroughs' Mars with a dry Atlantis. So we're kind of going in that direction too, but we wanted to make it kind of the female of the book is the hero. And you'll get that more as you go along, where the pirates, the two guys who are the swashbuckling adventurers, they're just kind of distractions. There's the evil dictator guy is watching these pirates, but then doesn't know what the left hand is doing while she's kind of gathering forces and doing her own thing. So it's kind of a fun way to kind of, again, play with expectations of what people think they're getting, Kevin likes to call it, my co-writer, Kevin Cuff, likes to call it woke pulp, which I think is a really great term, because you're taking something that has such a rich and wonderful kind of past, but you're kind of polishing it up a little bit. You're cleaning it up for a modern audience, so it's more acceptable and kind of has a further reach to it.
Yeah. So like with He May Yet Conquer, like the he it refers to is the Thark, that you meet in the first 4 pages, and like the story was always meant to be about him, but as I wrote it page by page, like this other character I bring in from the books, Fedor, who is like a supporting character in books 2 and 3, like she kind of became the main character towards the end of this book. Like she is driving more of the action. And like when I started to get excited about doing follow-ups, like it's actually her story now, like this warrior guy was like a means to introduce, Fedor, and like she's really the crux of the story and the point of the story. And it was like, it happened organically, but like when I realized it was happening, it was like, oh, this is perfect. Like it's not at all what I intended to happen, but this is so much better than, it would have been otherwise.
Think we lost Bob. Yeah. Oh, I think he's coming back. Okay.
Welcome back. I don't know what happened. My internet went out for a second. That was weird.
I was about to put Dust Pirates up one more time as a farewell and a thank you.
But yeah, I like what you're saying, Nick, because it's kind of like when I choose the work that we're going to cross over with, one of the things I want to do is look at it from, and I love the term woke pulp. That's awesome. I really do like that. But one of the things I like to do is look at the, what's good about the story, what's good about this work that we're crossing over, because there's these, these amazing things about Wells, and the War of the Worlds. Well, then what's not so great? And honestly, in the first issue, because there was so much setup and so much world building, I didn't get to do as much of that as I wanted to. But with Dracula in number 2, those Victorians, man, it's just. Anyway, yeah, I totally get you, man. I totally get you.
Yeah.
Wow, that was a complete conversation killer, wasn't it?
No, I mean, just it's in here. It's what 12:35. It's my brain is starting to kind of shut down after a while. It's been a long day of promoting Kickstarters and not sleeping, because I know I can't speak for you guys, but I know during a Kickstarter campaign, the sleep is very rough. Like it's very hard to do. It's very hard to get. And it's that last night I was actually dreaming about Kickstarter. So it just kind of sucks.
Oh, that's rough. I hope in a good way. I hope seeing numbers go up and not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're funded now, so I think I'll sleep easy tonight. Finally, I'm going to take some Tums before I go to bed, because I was drinking hot sauce earlier this evening.
You were there for your buddy?
I was. I mean, I got to support how I can. I got to do what I can. We're a team. We're a team in every stretch of the word. So
I've got your link up. Why don't you give one last hurrah on Dust Pirates, and we'll go around the bend.
Oh man, Dust Pirates it's a lot of fun. We're really excited about now being able to make the book, because we are funded. It's going to be 3 issues, 3 chapters. More likely, it's going to be like 80, 85 page story. It's beautifully illustrated by Tony Gregori, who's doing stuff right now with Aubrey Sitterson over at Dark Horse for The Worst Dudes. Tony's a wonderful artist. He's a great guy. We're really happy to be working with him. Josh Jensen's coloring the book. Chaz Pangburn is the letter and editor. We've worked with Chaz in the past on Metal Shark Bro. He's also a really talented guy, and we're just going to have a lot of fun. We've been calling it like a summer blockbuster comic. Like that's what we wanted to do, because now it seems like all the movies that are summer blockbusters are IPs from other things. They're Marvel movies, they're DC movies, it's a remake of something. But growing up as a kid, I felt like you had a lot bigger films, like a lot of summer blockbusters. So we're kind of reaching back into that old bag of tricks and trying to break some of that out for ourselves. So we're just really excited about making it. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to scratch some other itches. We did I notice you're wearing the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy shirt, which is one of my favorite books. I love Douglas Adams. We kind of scratched some of that itch with Metal Shark Bro, the absurdist humor, the silliness of it. So we're kind of scratching another itch here, try to do like a big kind of exciting, pulpy, fun work about pirates in a dusty Atlantis. It's super fun, and we're really happy about it.
Nice. Well, James, you had all of your time taken, so you don't get to say anything.
It's right for the best. I'm fading. I'm a early bird. I wake up, at 4 o'clock every day. So at this point, it's almost time for me to wake up. So
all right. So you can go quick. One last thing. Tell everybody why they should get House of Fear for themselves, but their sons, daughters, nephews, nieces, local library, elementary school.
To hand it out to kids everywhere.
On Halloween.
Yeah, it's 64 pages. It's 3 stories, each one standalone, complete. Matt just finished the lettering of the last story and sent it to me, the entire collection. And I don't know, there's something about this issue there's a lot of energy. There's a lot of storytelling and character development. I'm really proud of how this one came together. I mean, I guess I should say I'm proud about all of them, but there's just a nice flow to this one, and it just gets more impactful every page you go, and each story just gets better and better. So,
all right, God bless you, man. Good luck. And I've read the first 2 that I kickstarted, and then I do my crap. I've got 100 Kickstarter books to read, so I've got to catch up. But the first 2 were good for an adult. I enjoyed it. And you know what? Being published I'm going to put it like this. Not being published doesn't say a thing about your book. Not being published does not mean it's bad. But when Dark Horse Comics grabs your book and says, this is what we want to bring to the world, that speaks pretty loudly to me about how you guys should take a second and go to House of Fear and back this book, because James is a big guy, great writer, and this book is building comic readers for a lifetime for the rest of us.
I should hire you as my PR guy.
Hey, you can slip me whatever money you want.
I think we're recording this. I didn't write that down as you were saying.
The cool part about that.
Wait, I need you to say all of that again.
Yeah, exactly.
So I can type.
It's on YouTube. The cool part about that too, James, is like I did an all ages book, and there were points where I would get misty eyed when a kid would come back and looking like, "Oh, I really like your book. It's really good." Like you're making connections that I think you don't make with older readers, and if you do, it's kind of weird, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
But like when you can make that connection because this kid will read your book, and hopefully it will start a lifelong journey of comics and reading. Like it's a really great feeling. So you should enjoy that on every turn. It's
awesome.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Mick, bring us back to He May Yet Conquer.
First, I want to thank James for giving me all of his time again. It was really very considerate. He May Yet Conquer, a story inspired by the public domain works of Edgar Rice Burroughs following one warrior's journey into the afterlife. I think that's the tagline I went with. It's just a total passion project. I'm lucky enough to just work on the projects, that inspire me at the time, which is 100% what this was. It was tons of fun. It was great to be back on Kickstarter. I didn't realize how much I missed Kickstarter because, like, my first project, I think I did end of 2018.
Oh wow!
It's been a long time. It was a long time in between visits, and it's just it's so much fun, and like I enjoy this outlet more than I enjoyed going through SourcePoint. Like it feels more direct and connected to the audience, and
no, there's certainly more one-on-one interaction with the readers
it's
with
just
Kickstarter, and that's I've worked with SourcePoint, and they are amazing about getting out there and putting the book out, but they're selling it. If they sell it to 300 people or 3,000 people, you hear from 8.
Yeah.
And if your Kickstarter, you have 100 backers, you hear from 60.
Yeah.
And it's just a different ball game on the communication and the validation. And it's why I come back to Kickstarter.
Yeah, and if there's any in my life, it's validation. Like, not wasting your time.
Mick, you're good enough, you're smart enough, and doggone it, people like you.
Yeah.
One of the things I love about Kickstarter is I can't believe I'm about to say this, but the fulfillment, putting the comics in a bag, and is I try to leave notes for everybody, just a simple thank you, or even if I don't do that, just seeing their name and knowing that there's someone on the other side reading your book that you now know the name of that person. So you kind of picture that person as you send it, and it's just like, oh wow, that's a real person reading that. Because
like I've only done 2 cons. Like I got started on like the comics, like treating comics seriously as something I wanted to do like very late in life. Like only like 5 to 6 years ago, it was like, oh shit, like I need to practice if I want to be good at this. And like that's really when I started to take it seriously. So I've only been to like 2 cons, and like my plan for 2020 was just like hit the con circuit hard. That worked out just exactly like I wanted it to. But the 2 cons I made it to before 2020 happened, it was like, like talking with someone across a table, signing a book for them, and like putting it directly into their hands, is the most magical experience of my life, right ahead of my daughter being born or getting married. Like it is definitely, the peak of everything I've done.
Mick, you know that this is recorded, right?
They don't
I'm not
know
editing. I'm not editing that out, dude.
I'm sure they don't know how to Google anything.
That's fair. I'm going to interject 1 second. I was looking at an old Kickstarter video to kind of look at what I had done before and kind of rewrite this one. And I'm listening to it, and I'm not even paying attention. And I'm paying attention, but not. My wife's behind me. And in this video, I say, 2020 is going to be the biggest year for Tart yet. And I hear my wife guffaw behind me because we're listening to this at the beginning of 2021 after last year. And she's like, how'd that 2020 work for you, Ken?
There's so many plans.
So we all thought 2020 was going to be pretty great.
Yeah, it's going to be great. But anyway, like, I do have plans to serialize this, and unlike Rovers, which I also semi-had plans to serialize, like I could see the next chapter of this story hitting Kickstarter at some point before 3 years have elapsed, and I'm excited about it.
Beautiful. All right, Will, let's get it back to crossover.
All right, crossover division. Stories attempt to invade reality, and only an English professor and a research librarian can repulse these realities and save the world. So it lets me play with all the public domain toys that I want to play with. It's awesome. It's just, I've already got Sherlock Holmes scheduled for the next arc, so that's going to be a fun one.
Love it. That's cool. It's probably, I think one of the first books I remember reading is A Study in Scarlet, and it's just like, I love everything about this. This is amazing. And then Tarzan, which is not problematic at all when you're like 10 years old. Totally
exactly. and we'll be hitting up Island of Dr. Moreau in the next arc.
Ooh.
So
Yeah, he's got some cool stuff. I've read the next couple of scripts, and I know some of his outlines for some of what the things that are coming, and I'm excited for this series. He's got some great ideas coming along. So
yeah, James, it's an awesome editor besides being all those other wonderful things too.
Yeah, no, I just love the fact that there's almost nowhere you can't go, but wherever you go, there's some ancestral memory. You know, flying monkeys come through the window. You're like, all right, I'm with you. And that's kind of great. You had talked about the world building of Crossover Division, but you don't have to world build these.
The Wizard, Oz, or these other places. It's awesome. And I would be remiss if I did not mention the rest of the team. I mean, the art is by Pablo Martinena, which he is knocking it out of the park. The latest pages, and James can attest to this, the detail in the inks.
Oh yeah.
The pages that have been coming in are just beautiful. And then Brant Fowler is, our awesome designer and letterer. And then we've got James there keeping us all from, screwing the pooch. So it's all good.
so if it's good, Will did it, and if it's bad, James.
That's the way it works.
James missed it.
I agree. That's the way it should be.
It's like a fishnet,
And we've got some really great variant covers too. We've got Yasmin Flores Montañez, Kath Lobo.
Oh yes.
Which is an awesome cover. And then we've got Jen St. Ange, which is an awesome cover. And then Alice Leclerc is actually during the crossover. Wow, I'm really in character here, aren't I? During the Kickstarter. She's actually, we're going to see her process of doing her cover to number 2, which is one of the variants. So that's pretty cool.
Give me 2 seconds.
I went in for the Jen St. Ange cover initially, and then I was showing my daughter today. I was like, which cover do you like? And she liked, I don't remember. She liked one of the other ones. So I was like, well, now I have to get all of them. That's the only answer. I need to get all the covers.
Tell your daughter her check is in the mail.
You can walk us through the covers with people looking at them. Actually, I found.
Okay, this is the Yasmin Flores Montañez cover, which is just awesome. I mean, I kind of focus on the brides in this issue because Victorian attitudes toward women were problematic at best, I think, and the brides represent some really interesting things to me in the book. Did you know that they don't even have names? Stoker didn't give them names.
Wow.
They're just the brides. And I'm like, well, that's going to make drawing it really difficult if I just say, well, draw the brides. Okay, well, one of them. So Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie are now their names, at least in the script. So there you go. But that one is, and then this one is the Kath Lobo cover, and which is just awesome. And then Brant came in and did a really cool Brides of Dracula type wordmark logo, which is really kind of cool. But that's the colors on that just pop. And then Jen St. Ange did this one, which is kind of a Hammer inspired Brides of Dracula, and it's amazing. I mean, all of these covers are amazing. I feel like I'm more drawn to this one just because of the colors. I mean, and just the way everything pops, which is why it became kind of the project image. And then Alice is, I think I put that one in an update, but then there's some of the art from Pablo. This is the first probably 8 pages that are unlettered at this point. But
that panel's gorgeous.
Pablo is a beast. He is.
Did John Woo direct this panel?
That's all me. No, I said, hey, there's a building here. Okay, cool. It's a really cool building.
And the doves.
Yeah, and the doves. But it's really wonderful working with this team. I mean, I feel like we're putting some really good and cool stuff together on this book. So.
All right, I have to jump in and be a little bit self-indulgent, because when a shop owner of the collective comes in and puts this
Yes, that's
Hey,
awesome.
there you go.
That
Right on.
that makes me
Congratulations.
ecstatic, Danny. I am so happy to hear that. We got to get you a couple more, but that is, you couldn't have said anything to make me happier. Thank you, Danny. Maybe you could say, welcome to the collective, because I get up there and actually see the shop now that I've been jabbed twice. Oh man, that is, sorry, I have to be self-indulgent there. That's cool.
That's
news
great.
that
Yeah.
Well
I
deserved,
wasn't
my
looking
friend.
for.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and also you need to talk about Tart 13, man. We need to see it.
Tart 13. We get back to what's funny is there are two comic books that have to do with Atlantis on this chat. In Tart 5 and 6, a group of mermaids attacked Tart Acid, and she did not know why, and they did not like her. They came out to murder, and she really never knew why. And in Tart 13, she's gonna, because we're time travel and we get to play with this, she gets to go back many thousands of years ago to Atlantis before it sunk, and we're going to find out just why mermaids might have a blood vengeance against Tart Acid. And no, I'm going to let somebody else vamp on it because I have to find the actual page. So, Will, sell Tart.
Tart. All right, here we go. Time traveling demon hunter. All that stands between humanity and hordes of demons are the toxic fruits. And Tart Acid is she their best agent? Can we go that far and say she's the best agent?
I would say she's not the best agent. I say she is our eye into the toxic fruit. When we started the series, she was the newest agent. That is no longer the case, but she's a pretty interesting character. This issue, we actually show a different perspective. She's always our narrator, and when she tells us the story, she's the hero. But we let somebody else tell us about her actions, and they look at her a little differently in this issue. So we actually have two different art styles. Ludo created this. That's Atlantis before it sinks. And we're going to find out if Tart can save it from sinking, or if what we learned in our history books, or I shouldn't say our history books, our fairy tale books is true. So, nope, she's not the best agent. She definitely cares the most. I'll put it that way.
That makes her the best.
That does make her.
Yeah.
Because she cares the most.
She's new on the job, and she's definitely trying to do a good job. All right.
Man, Ludo is knocking that out of the park, man.
It was amazing. When I tried to write this book, I think Mick talked about having, trouble writing and creating during the pandemic. I'm open in the fact the first 6-8 months of this, I couldn't write anything new. I could edit old scripts, but to sit down with a new story, I just couldn't create the focus that was needed. And it took eight months of a lot of different things, including kind of meeting up with some people that are actually here on screen and just saying, why can't I write? Why can't I write? And them saying, you can, don't worry. And I came to Ludo and I said, I can't write. And he said, it'll happen. Don't worry about it. And eventually got a little more focus, and I sat down and I wrote Tart 13, and it was fine. And that wasn't good enough. And so I rewrote Tart 13, and it was better than fine, but it was still not above average. And I thought, shit, I got to crack this. And something told me, if we saw the story from two different perspectives, if we saw how Tart saw it, and if we saw how the people Tart interacted with saw it, it would, it might work. So I went to Ludo and I said, if I write this, you're going to have to do this in two completely different art styles. And he went, that sounds fun. Let's do it. And, to have an artist that is willing to completely invent an artistic style to draw half of your comic book is a joy and a gift. And it is why I am so proud of this issue, because he did that, and DC Hopkins heard about the idea, and he created 2 different lettering styles for Tart's narration and the other characters' narration. And I am so excited for people to read it, because I have no idea if they'll like it.
I liked it, man. It's awesome.
Thank you, Will.
I think it sounds great. I love what you just said. I'm more intrigued now than I was, on day one when you launched. So I'm excited.
Shit, I wasted like 7 days. No,
and it's 13 issues, man. I hope you're proud of that. I think
that's really impressive. Yeah, that's a lot of damn comics.
Yeah, I'm kidding.
And it's looking like about a 25 issue series, which I do have to be actually sincerely appreciative to Scout Comics. Now, I know that Charlie wasn't part of the people that actually said yes to us. That was James Pruitt and James Hake and Brendan Dean and all the guys. So they said yes. But it's now Charlie's problem to deal with it. And he and David and James Hake, man, they've been so great, and I'm so lucky. And I love being part of the Scout community, the Kickstarter community. I love making comics with you guys. I love backing your projects, because you're working as hard as I am, and I see you working as hard as I am, and I appreciate everybody who's making comics. And more than that, I appreciate everybody who is watching this. So thank you guys.
And thank you for having us on and letting us do this. This was a really fun time. I feel like I've learned so much, and I found new things. So that's really awesome.
We're going to go out on this. I'll be a little bit of a homer.
Oh yeah, do that. Sure,
But Dark Horse and Source Point Press are also represented, and they're both. I mean, everybody started Dark Horse, so I'm not going to do anything for them.
I love
Source
Point. I met the dudes from Source Point a couple years ago, and I love their punk rock mentality of like, we're just going to get in the van and sell comics. Like it just resonates with me. Just the idea of like, we go to like 300 shows a year. I met him in like 2019, and like, we go to 300. We just get in the van and drive around and sell books. It's like, that's amazing. Like, that's such a great attitude to have about it. So yeah, big ups to those dudes.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Good night. And thank you guys for stopping in.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.